If you're a beginner and your Procreate fashion illustrations still look flat and lifeless, this video is for you. I'll show you exactly how to turn this flat dress into a dimensional shaded illustration step by step in Procreate. My name is Ken. I make Procreate tutorials for beginner fashion illustrators who want to go from basic sketches to clean polished dress renderings. In every video, you'll learn one technique you can practice right away and actually see results. A lot of beginners add color and shading, but their dresses still look flat or hard to read because the lighting and structure ain't working together yet. You might be watching random shading tutorials, downloading more brushes and experimenting, hoping the result suddenly looks more realistic. Most of the time, it's not the brush or the tutorials, it's the process. If you don't have a clear system for where to place highlights and shadows and what to do first, your dresses won't read as three-dimensional, no matter how many brushes you own. So let's fix that right now. First, I'll create a new clipping marks layer. Pick color 3 from my basic shading palette. This is the highlight tone for the pattern. Now I'll grab my brush, Flower ADF from my newly added brushes folder. I'll name this layer 3 Flower ADF. That's the color number I use and the brush name. I'm setting my brush size to 5%. Now I will apply the pattern to the bodice first. Next, I'll hide the dress outline layers. After that, I'll apply the same flower pattern on the ruffle layer and the scarf layer. I'll use the transform tool to adjust the pattern placement. Now let's shade the bodice. I'll switch to color 1, which is my shadow tone. I'll also switch to my Moda For All shading brush. I'm setting the brush size to 3%. For this dress, I'm using the top front lighting, so the upper areas will be lighter and the areas that turn away from the light will be darker. First, I'll place shadows right along the line drawing to define the form. I'll add more shadow under the brush to create depth. Next, I'll add shadows on the left side of the chest. Then I'll gently blend that color into the remaining chest area with very light pressure. After that, I will place shadow along the sides and around the waist to round out the shape. Now I will blend this shadow color into the remaining areas. This creates a softer, more gradual transition without needing a separate mid-tone color. I'm not doing anything complicated here. I'm just placing the shadows along the seams, then blending them out gently. Once the shadows are done, I'll name this layer 1, which is a color number from my palette. Now I'm going to add highlights. I'll create a new layer and switch to color 2, which is my highlight tone. Then I'll name this highlight layer 2. Since the light is coming from the top front, I'll place highlights on the upper chest areas first. Then I'll repeat that on the other side so both sides match the same lighting. Finally, I'll add a small amount of highlight on the lower bodice to keep the center from looking too dark. Right now, the flower pattern is sitting underneath the shading layer, so it's harder to see. To fix that, I'm going to move the flower pattern layer above the shadow and highlight layers. I don't want to damage the original pattern, so I'll duplicate the pattern layer first. Then I'll reduce the opacity on the duplicated layer so the pattern blends naturally into the fabric. Now I'll switch to the eraser tool. I'm setting the eraser opacity to 60% and the brush size to 3%. Since this pattern is a light color, I'm going to erase parts of the flowers that fall into the shadow areas. This helps the pattern follow the lighting so the fabric looks more believable. If I don't like the result, I can delete the duplicate layer and redo it without losing the original. Now let's move on to the skirt. I'll create a new layer, switch to color 1, and name this layer 1. I'll place shadow along the line drawing just like I did on the bodice. I'm going to hide the ruffle layers so they don't distract me while I shade. Now I'll blend the shadows softly into the rest of the skirt with light pressure so the transition stays smooth. Now I'm going to add highlights on the skirt, create a new layer. Now I'll turn the ruffle layers back on. So before I start with the highlights, I want to add drop shadows from the ruffles because they block the light and create depth. So I'll keep using color 1 for a moment. Place darker shadows right behind the ruffles where the fabric overlaps. I'll also place shadow below the ruffles to show that they sit on top of the skirt. Now let's switch to color 2 and add the highlights. I'll blend the highlights softly into the shadows along the sides and through the center of the skirt to keep the lighting consistent. Next, I'll bring the flower pattern above these shading layers. I'm going to duplicate the flower pattern layer, lower the opacity, and erase pattern areas that fall into shadow, especially under the ruffles because that area should be darker. So this completes the basic shading for the bodice and skirt. Once you're comfortable with this, the next step is ruffles. That's what we'll cover in the next video.